Fucking periapt cables. All right. These are the M570s. Monoprice, Monolith headphones. Now, they're probably the best thing Monoprice currently sells as far as headphones go. But that's not just because, oh, Monoprice is the greatest at engineering. It's because they bought the same design that Blon and Linsol bought for those B20s, and they're all based off the Sendiiva's drivers. So, now I have an option. Either I analyze this headphone completely on its own, pretend these don't exist, and rave about them, or we nitpick between the three. Because this is a nitpicky sort of thing. They actually have enough difference. It's not like, well, these are just a clone, buy the cheaper one. There is a sound difference. There's a very, very specific sound difference. And if that didn't exist, I wouldn't know about the sound difference and I'd be very happy. But, okay. Price differences. These are the cheapest version of what Sendi's driver has been in yet. So, actually, no, I'm lying. It was the Takstar was the cheapest version, the 580. But that sounded like not good. The problem with the Takstar 580 was they took the driver out of this, they did bad things to it, and they shoved it in a plastic housing. Every one of these housings, even this one, you could barely see, is wood. And the wood housing with this shape and this specific depth away from the driver all matters. So, these are a decently wide planar with a focus on treble and clarity. Maybe a little bit too much of a focus. I still prefer the blondes, but the blondes are like $150 more, and at that point it's like, you okay. So, here's what we got. We start with the Sendiivas. Close, narrow, aggressive, planar, solid low end, good extension. All of it. Love them. Best fucking headphones of CanJam 2019 ever. 2019's CanJam happened early in the year, which is weird. I know they should do it at the end of the year. Best build quality. Every little rivet, every screw, every piece that moves, this piece of leather. The cable that it came with was a braided copper. It was $600, easily fucking worth it. Move forward in the year. Blonde B20s. Okay, less complicated, less nice head arrangement, less fucking quality. The pads are still nice. Those are super custom pads, which, by the way, that's revision 1 pads. I will link revision 2 pads for the Sendis in the description. But then you got these pads and these blondes, and there's a fabric fascia and perforations, and the head strap is sort of like yeah, okay, it's one of these, but this feels so nice, and the hinges are quality, and the wire came with was okay. It was all right. $450 for a wider version of this, sold. Now, I'll show you the original cable in a bit. Monoprice takes it. They put their logo on the back. They stain the wood so dark you could barely tell it's wood. I mean, it's like there might be grain showing there. I don't know if the camera can even pick it up. Same pads as the blondes. Big thickens. I cannot find these pads to buy online. I'm sure they're out there, but I searched for 10-15 minutes. I'm like, I want pads, and like, nah. Headband change from both of those. So these have a suspension strap. These have a suspension strap. This has a full-blown, and I mean full-blown, just regular headphone top. But it is one of the biggest I've ever seen. Like, ever seen. That is massive. And it's not that heavy. I was worried that it would make the weight too much top-centric, kind of like the HC700s. Not really a problem. It's padded enough. It's the least comfortable headband of the three, just because suspension straps tend to be the most comfortable. All right, that one with the leather is probably the most comfortable, and this is the lightest array. And this is sort of like, you can see it's much bigger and bulkier, and The little suspension thing is just sort of suspended up there, and this is a standard headphone. Now, it adjusts like that. That adjusts by sliding, and this adjusts by springs. But the cups are all the same. Now, they also change from here to there. This metal, I think, is a higher... I don't want to say higher... It's just a different design. This has pegs, like that has pegs. This is sort of like a rivet, a flat-faced rivet. So there's some definite changes that Monoprice put into it to sort of delineate that from regular people noticing. I notice. I have hundreds of people in my patronage chat and things who tell me, did you see these? They look exactly like these. Let me show you the schematics. So I'm just like, I'm just bombarded with knowledge on a daily basis. Yeah, you people are part of my research. Is you guys bring things to my attention. So the biggest change between the three is the tuning of the driver. And it's hard to put that into perspective because I don't have equipment to take apart and rip this thing apart and show everything. All I know is that you can look through this perforated screen, which is smaller in the center, larger on the outside. You can see the wires in the driver, and you can do the same thing here. You can definitely see the wires, and there's just this fine mesh back here, and then there's the driver. And then these is harder to see, but if I hold a flashlight against it, you see there's no foam behind. I thought there was a full piece of foam covering the back of the driver in this, and there's not. You can see the wires in that as well. So it's basically you're taking the same driver and you're changing its options. This is the top of the line Corvette with the ZR1 Sport Package suspension and magnetic ride and everything else. And this is like the the limited edition, send it to Vegas Corvette. And then this is base model Corvette. It's just got a headband. It's got a standard wire. No thing fancy. It's got a box. Actually, the blondes didn't even come with a box, so I got to give Monoprice that. If any of you have seen my KLH Ultimate review, which I set to release tomorrow, so I'm assuming this hasn't been released before then, this is pretty much the exact same cable as the one that the KLH Ultimate claimed was a fucking braided silver go suck my dick cable, because that's exactly the same as it, only this one terminates in a split to two 1/8 inch, which are marked red and green for Christmas, and it's a nice cable. I am running everything on this desk currently balanced. I've got the Sendies off my reference, and I've got the M570s and the blondes both off my twin pair of THX 789s. I figure that's the more close comparison, and I know what these sound like by heart. I'm running balanced cables, Ursine cable here, Periapt cable, which does that thing still there, and the new Heart audio cables with the configurable ends here. He's not ready to sell those to you yet. Soon. These are a buy. I'm gonna start with that. I was gonna sit here and analyze between the three. Let me get this out of the way first. These are a buy. They're the best headphone Monoprice currently sells, even if all they did was take better, more expensive headphones and sort of cheapen it up. But preference on my end, since I have all three here, I still lean towards the Sendy, but that's $600, unless you get it for $500 on Massdrop. And then there's the $450 blondes, which I think have also shown up on Massdrop for $400, so that's $50 off there. And then these are $300. That is a huge chunk of saved cash. Now, they're $300 on monoprice.com. Amazon has them for $315, free shipping. So it's about the same. I've done that test before. If you want to buy everything you get from Amazon, there you go, link. If you want to buy it from Monoprice, you're buying other cables and glass shells like those. Will I link those glass shells? I'll link those glass shells. Those are individual glass shells. I'll link Zeos in the future. Link glass shelves because they make a cool thing. So if you're doing that, I'll link to Monoprice. Comfort. Let's start with comfort. I know I've said I prefer the other two, but overall, it's hard to say these are uncomfortable. The size of the pads, the softness of the pads, not a memory foam. This thing is not as comfortable as you'd think, actually, because it's so wide. It's like, oh my God, Zeos, it's so wide. but it doesn't curve with your head. It sticks out front to back, so you still only touch the very center of this. And it isn't exactly the thickest of pads, but it's not heavy. These are not, they're not light. They're definitely a planar. If you push it down hard and then pull it up a bit, it feels a little bit more secure. And then you play it. And it has the same sort of magic that I heard of the Blondes. And that had the same sort of magic I remembered from the Sendies. It is a very clean driver. The thing here, I'll give you the insight in what actually clued me into what the sound difference is. When I change tracks, I use Wasapi, which is an outputting thing that literally stops the signal and starts the signal again in a lossless format. So my DAC pops. Whenever I change tracks, it's like, makes that sound in like one ear or both ears. And on every headphone, it just sounds like, but on this headphone, it sounds like ding. And I'm like, what? That was the first thing I noticed, was that when I change it, and it was sort of like a static, just, you know, like a little tiny, like, oh, reinitializing the DAC. This one sounded tinny. And I thought maybe 100 hours of burn-in would fix that. Nope. So the drivers in this, even though they're in the exact same enclosure as the Blondes and that, they produce a much more shrill end of the highs. It's like if these are 1 octave lower, these are 1/2 of an octave higher. I don't go full octave. I don't want to pretend I know exactly what an octave would sound like. I don't do music that much. But these are considered the warm ones, and these have more of a focus on treble. Imagine the entire perspective of these. If you heard my review of the Blondes, like, oh my god, the Blondes are great. They're so warm and wide. Now take that from low end and high end and go like this. So a little less low end and a little more high end. That's it. That's the tuning of these. I would call them clearer. And it's not a point where it's like, oh my god, the treble's too sharp. I haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten there with these. But because the pads are the same, the requirements are the same, those amps are identical volumes, the difference between the Blondes and the M570s is just a slight shift in frequency response. These do treble more. Not better, more. And these do bass more. Not better, more. And if we want to bring the Sendi Ivas into this, I think overall, with these pads, with whatever they've got tuning the driver, these are still the smoothest. In a blind taste test of normal people, the Sendi Ivas would win every time. Unless you wanted soundstage, in which case you'd be like, oh, these are a little bit close and aggressive. And then these both would beat them in soundstage. So it's depending on who you stick them on their head. If I didn't have to worry about the price difference, I'd still get the Blondes because that's what I prefer. I prefer a slightly warmer planar if you're going to give me width. This is a wide planar that's a little bit more tuned to give you treble. Vocals in this sound modicum different than they do on these, because everything is just shifted up towards the treble, towards that little bit of tinny pop. The bass on it, I had a track that was just vocals, just someone a cappella-ing, and I was switching back and forth, and I could it sounded like on the M570s, take the speaker and put it through, like point it at a tin can at like a foot away, and you just get that like resonance, that like slight ringing to the sound. And I don't think you could fix that because it's the drivers themselves are modified. And you can't open the back of this. It's not like the M1060 where you could just unscrew it, take it off, and do anything you wanted to. This is this. I don't think this comes out from the front or from the back. You have to probably pull the whole driver apart to modify it. So I don't see these things as being modifiable. But that's fine. Like I said in the beginning of this review, best headphone Monoprice currently sells until I get... Where are we? Until that, the M1070 shows up. Because M1060, M1060C, great stuff. This comes in using the Sendy driver, and it's like, Now that shows up, and I thought it might have been a Thiodio Phantom rebranded, because, I mean, what the hell? Monoprice seems to be doing some rebranding. Let's see what they got. But this, the Thiodio Phantom, is a 101mm driver, and that's a 106mm driver. So it's, I have no idea what it's based off of. It's that, I think 106 is what the M1060C was. It's gonna be interesting. I wonder if that's just an M1060C with a different headband, because they're going with this sort of style. Actually looks a little narrower than that, and like a twisted Bear Dynamic thing. That's another review. I don't know about that one. All I know is this $315, this $450, this $600. Here are the pads. These pads, if you wanted to grab these and you wanted to see what it would be like with, you know, Sendy Iva pads, which are, I think, amazing, probably some of the best weirdly designed pads on earth, they're $25. I will link those. They have front thin and back thick, and up thin and down thick. And then here they are on Monoprice 300. 10 questions, 8 answers. Did no one review these yet? Am I the only person that has a set? They're an absolute buy. They're a buy. They're $300, and they're gonna live in that, like, oh, well, buy these for a while. Because even if 5% of me says, oh, I like the warmer, softer approach that these take, that's $150 off. Yeah, I'll take it. They're beautiful. They are well made enough. I still think these are slightly more well made, just the way the metal feels and the hinges sort of actuate. But again, $150. And then if you look at this, this is twice the price of this, using the exact same driver. And I think if you swapped these pads with these pads, you'd get the soundstage. So it's like, if you have Sendy Ivas, don't worry about these. If you bought the blondes, when I freaked out about the blondes last month, don't worry about these. Unless you want to sell those and go with these, save yourself some money. But then by the time you sell it, oh shit, I hate this game. Don't you hate this game? I fucking hate this game. Because I wish I could have heard these and these at the same time, and I could have just, people would have picked, and I probably would have bought this in mass. Because it's so close to that. Just the smallest little thing. I haven't done the sound demo for these yet. I'm going to have to do the sound demo for these. And I'm going to probably figure out the blonde sound demo and add the tracks in, at least 6 of them. They have a slight... The only thing that I have to say negative about the sound, knowing what they could sound like, is that with that treble increase, there's this slight annoying little not nasal, it's like a third of a nasal sound, because I hear that treble increase. And whatever they did to make the treble just be a little bit more. But without anything else to compare against, I wouldn't even have noticed it. It'd be fine. Wait. Yeah. These are the next big. These are the next big seller for Monoprice for shit sure. I'm still gonna recommend the blondes. Number one, I think they look better, and number two, I think they built better. And number 3, I think for people who want sort of like an opposite of Sendiiva, a little wider, a little softer, that's what you go with. I'm sure, however, in the upcoming weeks and months, as these get more and more popular, as hundreds of people start buying them, the mods will start coming out. And once the mods come out and you can start twisting a cheap $300 headphone into the $450 headphone, or $25 pads on these to make them a little bit more like that, and then I don't know what the future holds for these. Right now, they're a fucking buy. That's all I have to say. I just hope to Christ that the Monoprice doesn't screw up the M1070s, because those things need to also compete. Anyway, that wallpaper, available in the description. My Patreon, the link in the description. I think they want these back, so I'll send them back. But I'm keeping the blondes, and they go on my wall. It was real easy to do that. Sendiivas I'm not getting rid of. They just don't live on my wall because I use them too much. Patreon. 1st to the 10th, I sell things in yard sales. Probably that. One of these players here. Maybe a few headphones that'll line up there. Oh, certainly these gaming headsets will probably end up in the yard sale. That's for the $5 patrons. $5 patrons also gets to ask me any questions they want via messaging. And you get to see all these reviews early, up to a week and a half, which is important when something really good comes out, because you want to buy it before everyone else. Then for the $10 Patreon tier, you get to a private Telegram chat. I'm in there. 100-something people are in there. They're all talking about audio. I chime in, post anime memes. Everyone gets upset. It's great. So there's that. Then there's a sound demo, which is coming out tomorrow. I'm not sure if I've made the announcement for the format change of Z Reviews. Like the timing, like the daily thing is just wearing thin. So we'll see. That's all. Tomorrow, sound demo, or right now, sound demo in the description. And again, link to wallpaper, and all wallpapers always on Patreon. $2. That's it. My nose is stuffy. I'm going to go take some Excedrin. Bye.